Welcome to a spooky Bad Influence, where strange things are going on as we conjure up the ghosts of presenters past.
Oh, we're looking at the latest ghostly games, including Alone in the Dark 3.
And if that isn't scary enough, try this. It's the tallest roller coaster in the world, and later I'll be explaining why it went wrong. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the great magician Andy Arno will conjure a ghost before your very eyes. And those of you watching distantly on television devices, please note that there is no camera trickery involved whatsoever. Talented man, he'll go far. But if he didn't use camera tricks, and he didn't, how did he perform the trick? Well, I shall show you. It's a very famous effect. It's called Pepper's Ghost. It was first performed in 1863. It works on a simple principle. This isn't just an empty cabinet. There is, in fact, a sheet of glass diagonally across it. Ghostly Violet? Well, she's just over to the right there. And to make her appear, you just turn the lights up on Violet. She's reflected in the glass, and it looks like she's off behind the cabinet like that. It's very simple, but very effective. Pepper's Ghost produces what's called in the trade a virtual image. That is, one that appears to be behind the glass. You can't reach out and touch it. Violet, thank you. Violet will let you know. There's another version of this trick which produces what's called a real image. That is, one that floats in midair, one that you think you can reach out and touch. I'll show you how it works. Put our can of drink in here. Close the window. Now, for this to work, I'll have to have two things. A, Les on camera 2 will have to come really close. And B, can we have the studio lights down, please? Now, if you were here, you should be able to see that can of Coke suspended, say, 12 or 13 centimetres in front of this box. It looks like it's in midair. It's terribly clever. Look, this tracing paper will reveal more. As I bring the tracing paper forward, as it passes through the plane where the can is, the can will come into focus. So just about there. There it is. And that paper is about 13 or 14 centimetres in front of the box. It's really effective. It looks like you can get hold of the can, but of course it's not that. Why are we showing you all this on Bad Influence? Well, a British company has just come up with a more advanced version of this trick, one that produces real images from video.
And this is it. It's called SIS, or Suspended Image System, and we're using it to show Mickey Mania, which we'll be reviewing later in the programme. Now, as with Andy's device, the image hangs in midair, and it's just there. It's very difficult to show on TV, actually. You'll see it better if we move the camera around a bit. This display unit is just a prototype, but they're planning to make the image much brighter and life-size. And they're even planning a TV version, so you can show TV pictures like this.
Aha! 'Tis I. Now, because you can use the SIS for any TV or video picture, one of the proposed uses for it is in advertising displays.
And it'll even be possible to interact with a suspended image using a kind of touch-screen technology.
Get off, Violet. Your nails are sharp.
Hello, Furtling fans, and welcome to the Namrud Cheat Show. Oh, yes, neat, neat, blurp. And I've got some spanking cheats for you, Ribbit Club knows, including this one for the Addams Family on the SNES, which powers you up with 5 lives and only Morticia to find. Woof, woof. Ugh. On the password screen, just type in BLJ1 and 2, and then when you start to play, you'll get 5 lives. Grr, grr, beep, 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 beep. I'm not completely mad, you know. Neat, 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 neat.
From one head case to another, because our main review this week is Dynamite Headdy on the Mega Drive. Surely one of the strangest characters ever to appear on the system. He's a toy who's using his head to defeat the evil King Dark Doll, quite literally. When danger threatens, Headdy flings his bonds at the baddies, and he can swap heads to get different power-ups. Early on in the game, you visit 3 practice rooms where you find the friends who will aid you in your quest. For instance, this is Headcase, who carries your spare power-up heads, and this is Bo, a little Cupid character who shows you where to fling your heads. The game has a very distinctive look. It's sort of Monty Python meets Wurzel Gummidge. But how does it play? Who else could we get to review a game like this but Adam?
Whoever wrote this was probably dropped on the head when they were a child. This is the strangest game I've seen in a long time, but it's actually very good. To climb up a vertical wall, you need to use one of these, a spike head. It's one of the 18 heads in the game. Some of them are good for you, but some of them aren't, and they'll only get you killed. That there is a head case. By shooting it, you can change which head you're using. Right now, I've got to get a weapon head to kill this snake, which comes with monster fireballs in the depths of hell. This is another mad idea. To go to the next level, you're pulled into it by your arch-enemy, Trouble Brewing the Cat. This is a vacuum cleaner head, one of the best weapons in the game. It lets you suck in all the enemies, and it's got to be in competition to be one of the best weapons in any computer game ever. This is a nice game, very original, but some people would find it just too difficult to be bothered with.
It's not a very easy game to play, but it's worth persevering with because it's got so many brilliant ideas in it.
Gives me a headache just watching him. It's the most wonderfully bizarre game I've ever seen, and it's the most original platform out.
And the scores for Dynamite Heady, both the boys and the girls gave it a psychedelic 4 out of 5. So, pretty good scores there for Dynamite Heady. Now, about 6 months ago, the tallest roller coaster in the world was opened in Blackpool amidst a great fanfare of publicity. It's called the Pepsi Max Big One. It's controlled by computer and it's a mile long. Now, you may remember that back in July there was an accident involving one set of cars crashing into another set. An accident that shouldn't have been possible. Now, only recently the ride's been reopened, and Andy went along to find out exactly how the impossible happened.
Unless you've been playing Theme Park 24 hours a day, you can't fail to know that the world's tallest roller coaster, the big one in Blackpool, has been experiencing a few problems this summer. So I've come to check out what went wrong and what they've done to put it back on the right track. At busy periods, they can run 3 trains at once on this ride, and that has its problems, because these trains don't have any power of their own, they don't have any drivers, they don't have any engines, and most importantly, they don't have any brakes either.
You might think that once the cars are released from the top, they will always go at the same speed and therefore take the same time to get back to the station. If only it were that simple. 2 things affect the speed of the cars: friction and wind resistance. On a cold, dry day, the oil in the bearings of the wheels will be stiffer and give you a slower ride. If it's just rained, the track will be slightly slippy and you'll go faster.
As for wind resistance, well, an empty car travels faster than a full one, and enthusiasts who put their arms in the air like this shouldn't, because it makes the car run slower.
So, for speed, sit at the front of an empty car on a hot, airless day after a shower and keep your head down.
Well, so much for fun. Behind the scenes, or should that be above the scenes, the watchword is very definitely safety. Every metre of the 1.5-kilometre track is rigorously checked every day. And I can tell you that this bit's fine, so, can I come down now? The track's divided into sections, and the brakes are put at the end of each section, generally at the higher points of the track. That makes braking easier because at the high points, the cars are running slower.
The brakes ensure that the cars are at the right speed for the start of the next block. Every morning before they take on passengers, the operators check that the emergency stop procedures are working correctly.
These sensors monitor the speed and presence of each train, and they can tell the difference between a moving train and a resting seagull. You could employ people to monitor the trains as they go all the way around the ride, but you need an awful lot of them, and it'd be a very boring job. So instead, they use computers. This looks after the management of the ride. It's called a PLC, Programmable Logic Controller. It's basically a computer with a permanently programmed set of instructions. The controller gets information from the sensors all the way around the ride and compares what's actually happening with what it knows should be happening. It's supposed to shut down the whole system if there's ever a mismatch in that comparison. But in July, a train was held here and another train came and ran into the back of it. Nobody was seriously hurt, but quite a few people were badly shaken up. Computers don't break down, do they? So what went wrong? What they've since found out is that a sensor failed in the final section of the track just before the station. The logic controller sensed this and operated the brakes up here as a failsafe, which is what it was designed to do. What it didn't do, however, was to stop the train that was up here completely. So it ran on around the track and ran into the train in front, just in front of the station, at between 5 and 10 miles an hour.
The accident could have been a lot more serious if it had happened higher up the ride. After the crash, they discovered that the brakes hadn't been applied early enough or hard enough when the sensor failed.
Were you surprised when the ride went wrong?
It's a very complicated ride. We're obviously very disappointed that it went wrong, and we're trying to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
Well, the ride is back in business with a few changes. The brakes have been improved, there's a new watchdog computer checking the first computer, and when they're running more than one train, they've introduced a special new sensor, a man with a stop button. This is Andy Crane watching the man, watching the computers, watching the big one for Bad Influence in Blackpool.
Wow, that looks absolutely brilliant. I'm dead jealous, actually. How many times did you go on it to make the film?
About 9 or 10 to make the film, and I'd have done it more if they'd asked me as well.
So you felt safe?
Completely, utterly, and totally. It's a fabulous ride. And if you're ever in Blackpool, check it out. Now, time for this week's News and Previews. Britain's biggest home computing show is on in London this weekend. Highlights of this year's Future Entertainment Show are the first public appearance of Sega's Mega Drive add-on, the 32X, or Mega 32. The launch of Alien vs Predator for the Jaguar, both of which we've already shown you here on Bad Influence. And there's the first consumer showing of the massive new space shoot-'em-up Inferno, which we're featuring in-depth in next week's programme. So if you want to find out what's hot in home computing, get yourself down to Earl's Court or watch Bad Influence from the comfort of your own home.
Best-selling beat-em-up Mortal Kombat 2 is being developed for computer formats. A PC game will probably be out by Christmas, and a CD-ROM release is planned for early '95. But this is the Amiga version, due in the shops at the end of next month. With all the question marks over the future of the Amiga, this is perhaps a small vote of confidence.
Fancy yourself as a Ghostbuster? Then watch out for Ghosts, an interactive game that lets you investigate the paranormal. You explore a haunted house where you find video interviews with famous skeptics like Dr. Sue Blackmore and famous eccentrics like the ghost hunter Robin Furman. The idea is to piece together some of the best ghost stories ever told and decide for yourself what really happened. Spooky stuff, out soon on Macintosh and CD-ROM, so you can scare yourself witless next Halloween.
Techie subjects. I am the king of the techies. Neep, neep, neep. And you are my subjects. Oh, yes, I am the king. Stand up when I'm talking to you. Neep, neep, neep. Here's a cheat, dear subjects, for Prince of Persia on the Game Gear. It lets you start on the very last level. On the password screen, type in P, D, H, J, D, and V. Neep, neep, neep. And there you are. The last level. And now we are all going to sing the King of the Techies song. I am the glorious King of the Techies. I am the gracious King of the Techies. I'm the King of the Techies.
How very like the home life of our own dear Queen. If today's show hasn't sent a shiver down your spine yet, just wait till you see the lineup of ghostly games that have slithered their way into the Bad Influence studio. Here's a selection of the spookiest. First up, the sequel to last year's hit game Zombies, it's Ghoul Patrol on the SNES. You play Zeke, who discovers a book in a glowing chest. Following the instructions in the book, he summons up an evil demon of the past. Your ghost-busting mission is to save the demon's victims that are scattered about each level, while avoiding possessed furniture and flying eyeballs. Drink the red potion to turn into the Grim Reaper and float among the living dead.
And if that's not scary enough, you can join the spirits of the dead in Isle of the Dead on the PC CD-ROM. You play Jake Dunbar, and your plane has crashed on a remote island. That's the good news. The bad news is that it's full of the living dead, and you only have a limited amount of ammunition. Isle of the Dead is an adventure game with 2 levels to it. The first is a basic kill the zombies before they kill you. The other is a mystery, as Jake tries to find out why the zombies are there in the first place and how he can get back to civilization.
Now, how may I be of service to you?
If you prefer the more familiar spooks, spectres and monsters, then there's Frankenstein, also on the PC. You have to guide Igor, Dr. Frankenstein's assistant, through a castle, a graveyard and a village, looking for scattered pieces of the monster. And where there's Frankenstein's monster, you're bound to find ghosts, giant spiders and mutant slime monsters. Oh, and watch out for the Vicar and the Undertaker.
A lot of the more spectacular ghostly games are out on PC rather than console, presumably because they're being aimed at an older audience. Harvester, for example, is a psychological thriller. You wake up one morning in Harvest, a town where you've lived all your life. The trouble is, you don't remember anything, and the town is full of strangers and some very weird sights.
Come in.
And Ecstatica is a sort of gothic explore-em-up. You play a weary traveller lost in a mysterious village full of bizarre monsters. Some of the scenes in it are definitely not for the squeamish.
And finally, a sneaky look at an early version of the 3rd and final episode from the Alone in the Dark trilogy, which is due out in February. Once again, the graphics offer impressive cinematic views. You play Edward Carnby, a private investigator who, on the night of July the 3rd, is called to Slaughter Gulch, a deserted ghost town, to rescue a woman called Emily Hartwood, who has mysteriously vanished.
Enough! Enough, I'm too scared to continue. Here's some non-scary games with some pretty scary reviewers. Question. Who's eligible for a bus pass but still bounces around with the best of them? No, not Keith Chegwin, Mickey Mouse, 66 years old and starring in a brand new platform game called Mickey Mania, a gay old romp through the film career of the famous Disney rodent. Here's Chris.
This is classic Disney. It looks gorgeous, but it does take itself very seriously. You start off with Steamboat Willie, Mickey's first film from 1928. The game is beautifully animated. The graphics are really nice to look at. The game's aimed at younger players, and the difficulty curve is just about right. In fact, on the first level, you can't actually die. I'm trying to hurl myself into the water here, and these fish are poking me out. Disney connoisseurs among you will recognise that this level is based on Mickey's 1933 film called The Mad Doctor. It's a different style of gameplay, and it's actually quite difficult. It took me a few goes to get through. It's a great-looking game, but experienced game players will finish it within a few hours, so it's not really worth £60.
It's not very original, but it's a pleasure to play because it looks so lovely.
It's a nice idea, but it reminds me too much of the other Mickey Mouse games, and they're a couple of years old now.
Scores then. Mickey Mania gets a golden oldie, 4 out of 5 from the girls and the boys.
Next, Race Days for the Game Boy. It's 2 games in 1. There's an overhead game in the style of Micro Machines and a racing sim, which puts you in the driving seat of a 4-wheel drive off-road vehicle. Ready to eat dirt? Here's Katie.
I found the overhead game very difficult to play. The tracks are so narrow that all the cars get bottlenecked, and it's very hard to control. The 4-wheel drive game is easier to control and much more fun than the other game is. The graphics are nice and chunky for the Game Boy, but after a while you still lose interest. I like the idea of putting 2 games onto 1 cartridge, but it only works if they're both interesting.
The overhead bit is total scrap, to be honest. If it got rid of that and used the extra memory space to concentrate on a 3D driving part, it would have been much better.
I didn't particularly like either of them. It's very put-downable.
Both the boys and the girls agree. Race Days gets a Lada convertible, 3 out of 5.
I am not the king of the techies. I am Nep Techie, underwater god of the Furtlers. And I'm creating my own underwater home right here in the basement so I can be worshipped from above. Oh, yes, and this is my high priest, Fang. Oh, what's that you say, Fang? Oh, yes, very good idea. Fang has asked me to provide a miracle for my followers, and I shall do so. Neep, neep, neep. This is a small miracle for Body Blows version 2 on the Amiga. On the options screen, hold down your joystick for 7 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you'll get a secret cheat options screen that lets you do all sorts of things like turn your energy on and off. Oh no, Fang, save yourself, Fang. Oh, Andy, Violet, I'm not mad anymore, honest. Can you turn the water off, please? Oh.
Quick, don't call an emergency plumber. Last week's competition prize was a SNES, a copy of NBA Live 95 and a real basketball set. We asked you what is the regulation height for a basketball hoop. The answer is 10 feet. We had over 13,000 entries, but the lucky winner is Peter Morris from Kent. Well done. 10 runners-up get Bad Influence Better Than Sleep t-shirts.
This week's prize is a Mega Drive with Dynamite Heady. And the question is, who invented dynamite? If you know, give us a call with your answer on 0891 555 999, 0891 555 999. Calls will cost no more than 25p. Lines will close at midnight on Monday. As always, make sure you get permission from whoever pays the phone bill before you dial, because as we always say here, you can't win if you don't ask permission, and we do check. That's just about it for this week. Hope you enjoyed the programme. Join us next week when we'll be looking at the space strategy game Inferno. See you then. Bye-bye.
Oh, and don't forget to watch Noel's house party on Saturday, because Andy's getting a gotcha Oscar.
All right. See you later.
See ya.
Bye-bye.